Hey everybody, it's Tim. Welcome to another episode of the Peep Show, all about World War II vehicles and military vehicles in general. So on today's show is more of a vlog entry. I decided to talk just about my experience learning to weld, and I am not a very good welder at this point. I am probably, the difference between me and Bubba is I grind and Bubba doesn't. Bubba does some really bad welds, but just doesn't fix them and grind them. I do really bad welds and grind them. So, but anyway, if you want to restore military vehicles, you kind of have to learn how to weld if you want to do it yourself. And for me, I found myself always wanting to go needing to have other people do things for me, and it was just kind of exhausting. I didn't want to depend upon other people. If I needed to fix something, I wanted to be able to do it myself. And I've always kind of kicked around the idea of doing a welding class. And finally this year I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And so what I did is I signed up at a local community college for a welding class. And it's been a pretty decent experience, and I've definitely gained some skills, and I'm sure I'm going to gain some more skills as I do things. In fact, you know, I can see some improvement from the very first patch that I made about 2 weeks ago on a panel to what I'm doing now. I was working on one tonight, which was kind of a crap show. Because of my own fault, and then I started working on another one, and that one's actually going much better. So what I did is I went to the local community college website, and I found where they have a welding class. Now that community college has a campus here in the town that I live in, Columbia, which is about 130,000 people. And but their campus is mainly just an offshoot of their main campus, which is about 30 miles north of here in another town, Moberly. And I looked around to see if the local vocational technical center had classes, and they used to have a lot of adult ed classes. And I work with those people on every day in my job in education, send a lot of students over there to learn different things. But they don't really offer anything. I think all the adult ed classes died out maybe during COVID or just before COVID. So this seemed like it was my best option. So I went ahead and signed up for the class. And the class met on Thursday nights from 5 to 8:30 p.m. So I had to, so basically my day on a welding class is I work a full day and then change clothes in my office, get in my vehicle and drive 30 miles, and then grab some dinner at a convenience store, usually a slice of pizza, a barbecue sandwich or something like that, and then go to the welding class, which starts at 5. The welding class itself that I took has about, I think there's maybe about 8 new students in there, first-time welders, and then there's second semester students. There's probably half a dozen of them in there. So the returning students mostly are just working on projects, and those of us that were beginners had a little more instruction. So on the very first night of class, we learned how to use a acetylene torch, which was kind of fun, and enjoyed it. And then the following week, we actually started to learn to weld. Now, you take a welding class, you're probably going to learn how to do most basic kinds of welding, and I believe most welding programs start out with stick welding. So we all have our own welding booths, and we started off with you know, just welding stick, and we had fairly thick metal plate that we use. Let me grab a piece. Actually, I can see a piece right over here. Sorry about that. I should have had that ready. Okay. Whoa. So this is kind of what we started welding on. And you can see it's pretty thick steel. This is actually from a local company that that makes trailers, and I believe that steel's all water jetted or somehow cut, and they give all the scrap to the school. Now, the where we take the class is actually a vocational technical center, which is really part of a high school. And then our class uses the same facilities in the evening. And so that steel comes from that trailer company over to the welding class. And then, so when we're welding, there's a big bucket of steel scrap that we grab, and then we can cut it using a couple different machines in there. And then we go into our booths and we can weld it. And then we practice, you know, a butt weld, which is joining two things together, or, you know, lap weld, where things are kind of on top of each other, they lap over each other, or maybe a T-weld like that. So we started off with stick welding, and our instructor actually had us using 6010 rod, which is a really great welding rod. If you're not familiar with welding rods, the first two numbers talk about, I believe it's the PSI, and the second two digits talk about some of its characteristics. 6010 is a great welding rod used by a lot of people, but it's a very strong welding rod. It penetrates really well into the steel. So if you want a strong joint, it's very good to use, but it's also hard to handle. It's very hard to strike. So we use 6010 for like the first 3 weeks. And I was, the first night I was like crazy. I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I would try and strike the arc, and I was getting the electrode stuck constantly. And eventually I could get it going, but it's pretty frustrating. So then we went through a couple more sessions, and I got a little bit better and a little bit better. And then our instructor came in and gave us 6013 rod, which is actually a much more user-friendly welding rod. That's easier to strike, although it doesn't have quite the same properties that 6010 does. And then we did some 7018 rod, and that was good. And that stuff is kept inside of a little oven. So we just kind of played with that stuff for weeks on end. And so our welding class, we would go in, and our instructor may show us a video, maybe give us a little bit of a demo. And then next thing you know, you're in your booth and you're welding for hours, a couple hours. And the overall cost of this class ended up being, I believe it was like around $750 total. And then I bought my own welding mask. I bought this one, which is a Hobart. It's a pretty nice mask. I believe this is solar powered, and I like the logos on it, and I figured I wanted to get something halfway decent. And that was like $110, which is kind of on the upper end of welding helmets. You know, there's the super cheap ones. That one is an auto darkening. There's, you know, standard traditional flip front ones, although half the time I'm flipping it up and down anyway when I'm working. And there's some that are like in the $60, $50, $60 range. That was a little bit higher, and there's some that are even more expensive than that. So I thought I typically buy like the middle ground of stuff. That's pretty good. And I bought my welding gloves. These were made by Hyman. Really, really love these gloves. These are super great. And then I got a welding jacket. I think those gloves were maybe under $20. And then I got a basic welding jacket. I didn't go with leathers. Kind of went with this BSX jacket, and it's pretty nice. I like it. I like it quite a bit. And that served me very, very well. And I think that was like $35. So initially I was in it for probably, you know, $160, $175, something like that, by the time I got going. So that's basically what would happen in our class. And then once class was over, about 8:30 or so, I would end up driving back home and get home about 9:15 or so. So it's kind of a long day. I go to work, you know, roughly about 7:15, and get home after 9 o'clock. So, but it was always an interesting day also. And then, so basically we just stick welded for an extended period of time, and it was good. A lot of good experience got there, but eventually, you know, I talked to my welding instructor, and he kind of knew what I was wanting to do. He knew I was wanting to work on military vehicles and patch panels and things like that. So, you know, he let me try some flux core welding, which was good. And then we did a little bit of experimentation with MIG welding. But really up until right now, we're on week 13. We probably did stick welding up until maybe week 9. So then he gave us a nice class about MIG welding. And oh my gosh, that is so much easier. And it went really, really well. And right around that time, I was looking to buy a welder. And I wanted to get something that I could just put on a shelf for an extended period of time and not have to worry about, but something that would do a pretty good job. So I ended up buying a flux core welder. I bought the Lincoln Electric Handy Core welder, and so far it seems to be serving me okay. It's not perfect. Most people who weld automotive panels weld with a MIG welder, and they use fairly small wire, 2 something like that. And my flux core runs 3.5, and so I end up running it on the lowest setting possible, and it seems to do okay. I'm still figuring it out and trying to get the wire speed right, and I'm running it on its lowest setting. But that particular welder, I got it at Lowe's. It was listed, I think, for like $2.99. I did my military discount, and I got it for, you know, something like $270. So I got out the door basically about $300, which was kind of the price. So basically, my discount paid for my my taxes and stuff. So they didn't have it in the store, so they had to ship it to the store, which that took a couple days, but it was pretty good. It came with 1 spool of wire. Which I just finally used up tonight, so I've got several hours of welding on it. There runs 1 pound spools, which is not very big, but considering the stuff that I'm doing, it actually is not too bad. You know, if you're going to be working in a welding shop, this is not the welder for you. But if you're going to be doing things like I am and patching panels and things like that, you need something relatively small. One of the questions I have is flux core versus MIG. You know, ideally, I think a MIG is absolutely the way to go, but this kind of gave me the best of both. Now, I am considering buying a small stick welder. I've actually got way more time stick welding than I do working with a MIG. If you're not familiar with welding, MIG welders use gas, either argon or CO2, or kind of a combination of the both. So both of those. So you need to have a tank with it, and I didn't want to have a tank with it, but I did notice that Harbor Freight has a really tiny, it's like that big and that big, small stick welder that uses fairly small rods. And it's under $200, and you know, I seem to be doing okay with stick welding, so there may be some reasons I might want to use that, so I may go ahead and buy that. I'm not sure. It's cheap enough, and it's got some pretty good reviews. So other things that I bought to go with my welder, again, I've got $300 in the welder. I've got, you know, probably just under $200 in my gear. Is I bought a small welding table. Harbor Freight sells one for about $80. I found one online. I'm trying to find the brand name on it. I think I've got it reversed. It's like Volex, something like that. And it's a little more sophisticated than the Harbor Freight one. I got this one on eBay for basically the same price, $80. Had to put it together. It folds up flat, and then it's got wheels on it also, so I can kind of easily move it around. It's not that heavy, but it's not so bad. So you know, here, this is something that I've been working on patching. This is actually the lower passenger corner of a fender. This would be where it bolts into the cowl. So this was all rotted out, so I cut this out, and this is kind of what didn't go so well today. So actually, there's actually 2 pieces here. So I cut it out, and then I put in the bottom piece, and then I lapped over smaller piece on top of it. It was going okay. It was not a real great weld, but it was okay. And then tonight I tried to flatten it a little bit more with a hammer, and it all popped loose, and I had to redo a lot of it. But you know, it's all stuck together. It's going to hold. It's going to need some more work on it. And then I was working on another spot where I found I was cutting out a hat channel, and then it was really bad behind it. So I'm patching behind there. I wasn't really planning to do that one, but I got into it and kind of found it. And that one's actually going okay. So I bought some 18 gauge steel, and I have 2 grinders. I have a one that I use for just grinding, and I bought a second one for cutting, so I don't have to change wheels back and forth. And I think that's pretty handy. And I've got work gloves and things like that. And I actually do most of my cutting on my workbench, which you can't really see. It's around the corner that way. So I kind of lock everything down and cut it with the cutting wheel, and then come back and fit it in, and then tack it into place. The biggest problem I'm having right now is just blow through. And when you're dealing with old rusty steel like that, you get blow through. If you're not familiar with welding, blow through is when you're welding with it, and the metal just kind of disappears on you. It just melts. And you're supposed to turn down the heat a little bit. I can't turn down the heat on my welder anymore, but I am figuring out techniques to kind of work around that. So that's kind of where I'm at right now with welding. I've got 2 more weeks of my class, and I feel confident enough that I can do very basic patch panels. I'm probably am not good enough yet to replace a floor or something like that, but you know, you never know. The more I do it, the better I feel about it. And so if you want to do it, I would encourage you to go ahead and try it. Again, my total cost for all of this, the class was about $750. The welder was $200 a gear. If you want to count the travel costs back and forth, there is another guy in the class who lives in the town that I'm in. So him and I alternate driving, which is nice. So what's curious is the other students in the class are pretty much all like high school or maybe just recent high school graduates. They're all young. And then there's me and this other guy who's the guy I ride with. And we're basically roughly the same age as the instructor. And our instructor is very good. He's a fantastic welder, and he's a former auto shop teacher. So, you know, and he's just a good dude, and he's very, very skilled, which is also very helpful. So anyway, I'm sorry, I got off track there. I'm probably about $1,600 into it, learning how to do that. And of that, about half of that cost is stuff that I still have and I'll be using in the future. So anyway, if you want to try it, you know, go for it. Maybe there's some people who can teach you how to do it. That's always good. The advantage of going and taking a class like I did is that all the materials are included in it. There was an extra shop fee that rose the cost to, you know, the $750, but it was, you know, it was good. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm just working at it, and, you know, I just, you know, I try to make every weld a little bit better, and I don't always achieve that, but I think in general, I'm getting better. Oh, one other thing that I did do, sorry, thought I was wrapping it up there. One thing I did do this last class, and we've been doing MIG for a couple weeks, is that I went and found the thinnest metal possible that I could inside the welding classroom. So you know, we were using that thick plate metal, which is great, but it isn't really teaching me what I need to do. So I actually went and found I went over near the brake, which is what they use to shear metal, and found the thinnest metal that I could. And I found maybe some 20 gauge, and all I did for about the last half of the last class is practice on that really thin metal, and that's really what you need to learn how to do. So if you do take a welding class, talk to your instructor and let them know what you want to do with it. And most of the time they'll work with you. So anyway, that's it. There's a little bit of rambling, but that's kind of what's going on with me and welding. So I'm enjoying the skill. I really like it. I wish I were better at it, and the only way to get better at it is to keep doing it. So anyway, that's it, and I will see you on the next one.